I'm speaking to Alan Thurlow, who's the leader of IBM's blockchain and government program. He's been working with a lot of governments, in particular the UK. He's visiting Australia and he's been speaking with us at the blockchain seminars with various governments. Welcome, Alan. Alan, for an agency wanting to get serious about blockchain, what's that sort of path look like for them? How long does it take? Is it one of those things, a 5-year program, or can you accelerate it? How do they get into it?
No, I think blockchain is very different from a traditional ERP or any sort of software program. You start with a problem, and you are trying to then design a solution around that problem using a blockchain technology. It typically is probably 2 or 3 days of workshop around design, and then a 4-week build of a business application that can demonstrate how that problem can be solved.
Right, and identifying that problem, it's say something like say in a conveyancing system, for example, many parties, very messy. How can we try and liberate that?
Yeah, so you would need to be slightly careful about who you invite to the design thinking workshop, and it's good to have thought through the problem first and who the business network is, or who is in the business network that contributes to the area where that problem resides, because you do not want to be inviting people into a design thinking workshop that blockchain will disintermediate. So they will be disruptive and they will resist change. So it's better to start small. Start with your own organisation plus 1 or 2 that are maybe suppliers and customers of the process, and then go from there.
And the work you've done so far, what are the patterns you're seeing in the types of use cases that governments can exploit blockchain for?
It really comes around, there's 4 patterns that we're seeing at the moment. One is supply chain visibility. So typically a process or a regulated process from a government agency where you're wanting to check or to get visibility of different people's contribution to that process, which is typically today well hidden.
So that could be, say, like a public works department with a lot of contractors and commercial buildings,
yes,
etc.
Yes, or a farm to fork use case where you're tracking animals through a supply chain to the table. So it's any of those sort of supply chain. That's one big pattern. A second big pattern is registries, which governments spend a lot of time dealing with, and that could be any type of registry, whether it's corporate, land, cars, and so forth. The third one is identities. The current thinking is around self-sovereign digital identity for the individual and for an object. So how do we make sure that's robust and valid? And that then leads on to the fourth pattern, which is essentially risk and which is fraud and compliance, where you're managing that risk of implementation and using identity as a core component of being able to deliver value in that use case.
And in a world where it's starting to mix data, etc., and agencies are having to share with other agencies, portfolios, jurisdictions, even other countries, how does blockchain work? What's the benefit of blockchain in that context?
Well, it provides the ability, blockchain fundamentally shares data, allows data to be shared across organisational boundaries in a secure manner. So it provides that single version of the truth. So it builds trust in the information that is an aggregation of data from different sources. So that can be distributed to any place. It can be distributed internally or to a different state within Australia, or it can be shared with other countries. An example might be the Global Trade Digitization platform. So you're starting to see the emergence of global platforms that facilitate the exchange cross-border. And I think over time, you're going to see a number of these networks building up, and you'll probably leverage those networks to actually exchange the information, because the people that are going to get value from the information you're exchanging will be the people in that business ecosystem. So it's not everybody's. So it's not something that will necessarily be made completely public, because not everybody will be interested in it. It'll be private, it'll be permissioned, and it will be based on those that will actually deliver value from that data.
Right. And am I right, the sort of speed to market proposition here could be up and running in months rather than years, so it can work quite quickly, yeah.
Months, for sure.
Yeah. And then the governance question, how do we start tackling that? What's the role of government in that context?
Well, I think government plays two very clear roles. One is obviously they will be part of those ecosystems because it will be their data that's being shared in some cases, and they will be consuming data that's being shared to them by industry players, which they will get value from. But the other key role is to set some of the rules and the policies around how we share and so forth, and what we share. What government didn't do when the internet arrived was to take an active role in the policies around how that would operate. As a result, we've got a number of personal data breaches and issues that have surfaced as a result, particularly this year. We need to avoid that. So we need governments to be taking a real active role in setting the standards and setting the controls where the controls need to be set.
And so at a change level, it seems to me that technology is actually a relatively small part of this, that it's actually much more about reorganising business networks and systems that governments play integral roles in, such as health or transport or energy. There seems to be enormous potential to create value there.
Yes, and you're right. The technology is kind of, there are still some gaps which are rapidly being filled, but broadly speaking, the technology is fit for purpose and can go into production now. The real challenge is around how do you govern these networks? So how do you build the value chain for the new ecosystem, not just the individual organisation, but the whole ecosystem? And how is that value shared across the parties to that ecosystem? And then what do those parties contribute to participate in that network? So the network ends up self-funding and benefiting everybody as a consequence. So there is a win-win for everybody as part of the network.
Alan Thurlow, thanks very much for speaking to us.
You're welcome. Thanks, Tom.